episode of Money Matters. Today is a topic that is actually close to most cultures in the world. As I traveled and actually lived around many parts of the world, there's one topic that almost seems human or human want, if I may, and that relates to home ownership. Who doesn't want to own a home? A home, as someone said, is where the heart is, and we all want to own one to call a place where we can get back to. So I started looking at it, and then people always come up to me and also ask this question, okay, is home a very good investment? And today I hope to clarify and answer those questions. In my opinion, a home is not an investment. Oh, come on, that's not really true, say a few, especially those who've seen the property prices go up. Let me try and explain. Number one, a home in India especially is very expensive, right? Usual salaries here, and when you compare that to the home prices, they are usually in the range of about 4 to 5 years salaries. Compare that to a market where home ownership is very, we should aspire or look into the US, and they are usually 1.5 times their salaries. When we lived there, most of our friends, their homes were almost usually only in that ballpark range. We here in India end up buying 4 to 5 times. So, number one is that it is very expensive to own. What about the cost of borrowing? Most home loan rates in India are right about 8 to 10%. With so much cut in interest rates, today it's about 8 to 10%. Usually, in many years ago when the interest rates were higher, it was way higher than 10%, right? 12, 14 used to be the norm. What do you think is the borrowing rates in the US? 2 to 3%. So, one, it's very expensive to own. Two, even the borrowing costs are very high. Okay, so then let's look at the return. If the borrowing costs are high and the ownership is high, you would assume that the returns in India should be higher than the US. Surprisingly and sadly, that's just the opposite. Many or most people, when they buy their homes, the way they structure their EMI, which is the monthly installments you pay, is usually close to the rentals that one gets. In India, we all know that renting is usually just 20% that of the EMI, right? So EMI, owning a house or an apartment ends up 5 times more expensive than renting. So it's more expensive to own, it's more expensive to borrow, and clearly even the returns are very, very poor. So then comes the fourth reason. Everybody immediately comes and says, oh, but you are not including the returns that we have generated from property as an asset class. So I want to show here a chart that tracks this for the last 40 years. See, after all, an investment is purely just that. You invest so that you can get the best return for your risk category. True? So if you see here, since 1979, which asset class do you think has given some of the best returns? And you will see that the Sensex BSC that opened in 1979 is now about 40,000 and started at 100. Yes, a whopping 400 times return. And for most part of that run, it didn't even have capital gains. There might be 1 or 2 properties that might even get closer to those, but for most of us, even if we got a 50x return in these 40 years, we'd be very, very happy. And the last reason is what I call the investment properties or investment criteria. Any investment, in my humble opinion, should be liquid, should be transparent in their pricing, should be tax efficient, and should not have high holding costs, right? That's the only reason why the kings in the olden days, the only ones who had elephants. After all, the holding costs of elephants are quite high because you've got to keep feeding them. Now consider all these 4 criteria and just look at the various asset classes. Property always seems to lose. So, for these 5 reasons, ownership, borrowing, returns, property compared to other investment classes, and the very minimal investment criteria being fulfilled, I believe an investment house is not a good investment. So, does that mean you shouldn't own a house? No. Own a house so that you will live in it. After all, home is where the heart is. A house is not an investment, but one that you live and enjoy. Have a great day.